The first time they erased my name, I laughed it off. Maybe it was a mistake, I told myself. But mistakes don't repeat in headlines, or on television screens, or in the mouths of strangers who believed a lie. I was the waitress who paid a stranger's $100 bill. The girl the nation called America's sweetheart of kindness. Yet one evening, sitting in my dim kitchen with dishes piled high and bills stacked higher, I watched a glossy news segment where another woman smiled into the camera, taking credit for my story. My story. That night, something inside me broke, and something else caught fire. My name is Sarah Whitfield, and for most of my life I was invisible. Invisible behind the counter at the diner where I worked, invisible on the city bus rides back to my cramped apartment, invisible even to myself sometimes. The mornings always started the same. My alarm would buzz at 5:15 a.m., its shrill ring echoing in the quiet of the one-bedroom I shared with my 6-year-old son, Ethan. I'd slip out of bed before he stirred, careful not to wake him. His small hands usually clutched the blanket as if it were a shield. I would pause to watch his chest rise and fall, reminding myself that every grind, every sacrifice, was for him. Coffee came next. Cheap beans, brewed in a machine older than me, filling the kitchen with a burnt smell. I never minded. It meant warmth, a few minutes to gather myself before the world demanded I plaster on my diner girl smile. The diner sat at the corner of Maple and 3rd, a squat building with faded neon letters that still flickered, open 24 hours, even when 2 of the bulbs had long died. Inside, the floor smelled of bleach and frying oil. The counter stools wobbled when customers leaned too hard, and the jukebox in the corner worked only if you smacked it first. But it was my stage. My place of survival. "Morning, Sarah." Joe the cook would grunt when I pushed through the swinging doors. His apron always dusted with flour, his hair net crooked. "Morning," I'd answer, tying on my apron. By 6 a.m., the truckers filed in, big men with weathered faces and grease under their nails. They liked bottomless coffee and stacks of pancakes. By 7 o'clock, the office crowd arrived in press shirts, tapping their watches if service lagged. I floated between them all, smiling, listening, pretending my feet didn't ache. I had learned long ago that waitressing was more than carrying plates. It was performance, reading moods, softening edges, making people feel seen. And maybe deep down I liked that. Because outside these walls, I was forgettable. Inside, at least for the length of a meal, I mattered. Still, bills piled up faster than tips. Rent was late more than once, the landlord's voice sharp on the phone. Ethan needed shoes again, and his school sent home a note about overdue lunch payments. I pretended I wasn't drowning, even as the savings jar for a new washing machine filled painfully slow. Quarters and crumpled bills, never enough. The old washer in the basement of our building wheezed and rattled like it might collapse with every spin. Hauling laundry down 3 flights with Ethan tugging my arm was exhausting. But I kept saving, telling myself, one day things will ease. That was my world. Small, worn, stitched together with stubbornness and quiet hope. Which is why, when that couple walked in, clothes shabby, faces lined with exhaustion, asking for the cheapest meal we had, something in me recognized them. I saw myself reflected in their eyes. And in that moment my world shifted, though I didn't yet know how far the ripple would go. The day of the $100 meal started quietly, like any other shift. The lunch crowd had thinned, and I was refilling salt shakers when the couple walked in. Their clothes were clean but worn, the man's shirt collar fraying, the woman's shoes cracked at the seams. They looked around the diner as if stepping into a church, cautious, reverent. I set menus on their table, but before they even opened them, the man cleared his throat. "Please," he said, his voice low, almost ashamed. "Just bring us the 2 cheapest meals you've got. We can't afford more than that." Something inside me stilled. I glanced at the woman. Her eyes darted away, wet with the kind of pride that comes before it breaks. I could have done what was asked. Coffee and toast, our cheapest items. But instead I found myself saying, "I know just the thing." I suggested 2 hearty dishes, filling but not extravagant. When I brought the plates out, their faces softened with gratitude. They ate like people who hadn't had enough in weeks. When the man asked for the bill, I returned not with a receipt, but with a folded piece of paper. Inside I had scrawled, "I covered your meal today. I know times are tough. Here's a little gift, $100. From me to you. Take care of yourselves. I signed it simply, Sarah. They stared at the note, then at me, speechless. The woman's hands trembled as she clutched it. The man whispered, "Thank you. God bless you." I smiled, though my chest ached. That $100 was half of what I'd saved for the washing machine. Still, walking home that night, laundry bag cutting into my shoulder, I felt lighter than I had in months. I didn't know my life had just tilted on its axis. The next morning, my phone buzzed before sunrise. It was my mother. "Sarah, have you seen Facebook?" Her voice cracked with excitement. I rubbed sleep from my eyes. "What?" "That couple, they posted about you. Your note, the $100. It's everywhere. People are sharing it. They're calling you an angel." I opened my feed, and there it was, a photo of my handwritten note, my name right there at the bottom. Hundreds of comments. Thousands of likes. By noon it had doubled. Reporters messaged me. Talk shows called the diner asking for me. Within days, I was on national television. They seated me on a plush couch under bright studio lights. The host smiled warmly. "So Sarah," he said, "what made you do it?" I shifted in my chair, palms sweating. They reminded me of me. Sometimes kindness is all we have to give. The audience applauded. Tears filled strangers' eyes. And then, out came the surprises. A new washing machine. A flat-screen TV. $10,000 in cash. Vouchers, gift cards. By the end of that week, I was showered with gifts worth more than $100,000. The country fell in love with the poor waitress who gave more than she had. But fame is a strange thing. It shines bright, then bends shadows in ways you don't expect. At first, it was little things. Articles calling me the diner girl of kindness, without mentioning my name. A morning show segment using my story, but showing stock footage of another waitress smiling at customers. Then came the shock that hollowed me out. I was at home one evening, dishes soaking in the sink, when Ethan tugged at my sleeve. "Mom," he said, "that's you." He pointed to the television. On screen was my story. The diner, the couple, the $100. But sitting on the talk show couch wasn't me. It was a woman I had never seen before. Her hair was glossy, her smile rehearsed. She told my story word for word. The audience cheered. The host leaned forward and said, "You're truly remarkable." And she nodded, as if she believed it. I felt my breath catch. My knees went weak. Ethan looked at me with confusion. "Why is she saying she did it, Mom? That was you." I couldn't answer. My throat closed around the truth. The credits rolled. The woman basked in applause. And in living rooms across America, my name was erased, replaced by hers. That night, I sat at the kitchen table long after Ethan had gone to bed, the glow of the television fading. The savings jar for the washing machine sat half full on the counter. I stared at it, numb. I had given away $100. And somehow in return, I had lost my story. For a while, I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just a mix-up. A greedy stranger cashing in on a viral story that had grown too big for me to control. I convinced myself people would realize the truth eventually. That my name, my note, would resurface. But weeks passed, and the opposite happened. The fake waitress, her name was Lydia Moore, became a sensation. She was invited to galas, interviewed on late-night shows, photographed with celebrities. She wrote a children's book about the power of giving. Publishers printed her smiling face on posters, her hair curling neatly around her shoulders as if generosity had always been fashionable. And me? I was back at the diner, balancing trays of burgers and fries, smiling at strangers who sometimes said, "Hey, you look just like that girl on TV." I'd force a laugh. People tell me that sometimes. Then I'd turn away, cheeks burning, while they posted selfies with their supposed brush with fame. At night, when Ethan was asleep, I scrolled through news articles. Lydia's name flashed everywhere. America's angel of kindness. The waitress who changed a nation. Each headline carved a deeper hole inside me. But the breaking point came in the unlikeliest place, Ethan's school. It was a Thursday afternoon. Parents had been invited for a character assembly, where kids got up to talk about values like honesty and kindness. Ethan was jittery with excitement. "You'll be proud, Mom," he whispered, tugging my hand as we sat in the crowded gym. When his class marched onto the stage, Ethan held up a poster he had drawn, a stick figure waitress handing money to a couple. Above it, in crooked letters, he had written, "My mom is a hero." My throat tightened. For a moment, all the noise of the gym faded, and it was just me and my boy. Then the principal took the microphone. "Today, our students have been inspired by someone very special," she said. "A woman whose story shows us how kindness changes the world." She gestured to the projector screen. And there she was. Lydia Moore. Larger than life, her image filling the gym. Her smile beaming down at my son and his classmates. The room erupted with applause. Teachers clapped. Children cheered. Ethan's proud face faltered as he looked from the screen to me. Confusion clouded his eyes. "Mom," he whispered. Why are they showing her?" I couldn't breathe. The sound of clapping echoed like thunder in my ears. My hands trembled in my lap. When the assembly ended, Ethan's shoulders slumped as he gathered his poster. "They don't even know it was you," he muttered. His voice cracked with hurt. That night, as I tucked him into bed, he asked the question I had dreaded. "Did you lie, Mom? Was it really her?" Tears stung my eyes. I pulled him close, whispering, "No, baby. It was me. I promise you. I wrote that note. I gave that money. But sometimes the truth gets stolen." He looked at me, small face serious. "Then you should take it back." His words stayed with me long after he fell asleep. The next day, as I carried plates through the diner, a group of customers sat at booth 7, talking loudly. "That Lydia Moore," one of them said. "She's incredible. Did you hear she donated $100,000 to charity last month?" "She's a saint," another agreed. I nearly dropped the tray. My jaw tightened. My palms went slick with sweat. By the time my shift ended, I knew something had changed. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was resolve. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table with Ethan's poster spread in front of me. His crooked letters spelling out "My mom is a hero." The lie had gone too far. It had stolen my dignity, my son's pride, and even the meaning of what I had done. No, this wasn't about money or fame anymore. It was about truth. And I was going to take it back, piece by piece, word by word, until no one could ever erase my name again. Sleep abandoned me. Night after night, I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling while the city hummed outside my window. Cars passing, neighbors arguing, the old pipes groaning through the walls. My mind never stopped replaying it all. The applause for Lydia, the news headlines, Ethan's small, bewildered voice asking if I had lied. I tossed. I turned. I paced the apartment barefoot, the linoleum cold against my skin. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection in the kitchen window, hair wild, eyes hollow, and hardly recognize the woman looking back. "How did you let this happen?" I whispered to her. The savings jar sat on the counter, half full of coins and crumpled bills. I found myself staring at it like it held an answer. That $100 had been my sacrifice, my choice. And now the world remembered it as hers. I scribbled in a notebook late at night, trying to untangle the storm inside me. Kindness isn't about fame. Kindness isn't about credit. But another voice would answer. Then why does it hurt so much to be forgotten? Why does it burn when they cheer for her and not you? I told myself to let it go, over and over. But then I would see Ethan's poster. "My mom is a hero," and the lie would rise up again, pressing against my ribs like it wanted to break me open. One night, I dreamed of the couple. They were sitting in booth 7, just as they had that day. The man's eyes were tired, the woman's hands trembled. They looked at me, silent, waiting. When I reached into my apron pocket, I pulled out the note I had written with my name signed in shaky pen. But when I handed it to them, the signature had changed. It wasn't mine anymore. In bold, practiced handwriting, it read, "Lydia Moore." I woke up gasping, heart pounding, sweat soaking the sheets. That was the night I knew this wasn't just about me. This was about truth. Truth mattered. If lies like this were left to grow, they became history. And I wasn't about to let my history be rewritten. The next morning, I sat at the diner counter during a lull. The coffee pot hissed behind me, and Joe the cook flipped bacon in the back. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through Lydia's social media. There she was again, in a glittering gown at a charity gala, cameras flashing. Her caption read, "Always remember, kindness costs nothing." Thousands of comments praised her. Sponsors lined up. She was building an empire on the ashes of my story. I clenched my jaw. My hands trembled, not from fear this time, but from something hotter, sharper. Joe wandered over, wiping his hands on his apron. "You okay, kid?" I hesitated, then asked softly, "Joe, do you remember that couple? The one I paid for? Gave the $100 to?" He frowned. "Course I do. Whole diner talked about it for days." Would you ever tell someone else it was me? If they asked?" Joe studied me for a long moment, his gruff eyes softening. "Sarah, you did what you did. Nobody can take that from you." "Not really." I nodded, but inside I thought, "Oh yes they can. They already have." That evening, I dug through the shoebox where I kept old receipts, letters, scraps of life. And there it was, the carbon copy of the register slip from that day. My handwriting on the back, where I'd scribbled the note before tearing out the final version. Proof. I held it in my hands like it was gold. My heart pounded. Suddenly, I wasn't powerless anymore. I thought of Ethan's words. "Then you should take it back." For the first time in weeks, sleep came easily. Not the restless tossing, but a heavy, determined sleep, like my body knew it was gathering strength. Because now I had decided, I would take it back. No matter how long it took, no matter how many doors slammed in my face, I would set the record straight. And when the truth finally came out, it would burn brighter than all of Lydia's lies combined. The morning after finding the carbon slip, I felt something I hadn't in weeks: purpose. My hands shook as I packed Ethan's lunch, but it wasn't the tremble of fear anymore. It was energy. After walking him to school, I sat at the kitchen table with my notebook, listing every step I could think of: gather proof, find people who remembered, contact reporters. Don't give up. It looks so simple on paper. It never is. I photocopied the carbon slip and tucked the original into a plastic sleeve like it was fragile bone. I also pulled my bank statement from that week, the $112 transaction at the diner that matched the bill. Proof of payment. Proof of sacrifice. I thought of Lydia on television, her hair flawless under studio lights. What proof did she have? None. Only the arrogance to believe no one would question her. And so far, she had been right. I started with Joe the cook. He agreed immediately. "I'll vouch for you, Sarah. Anyone asks, I'll tell them exactly what happened." But Joe was rough around the edges, not the kind of man reporters took seriously. I asked a few regular customers too, truckers, an elderly woman named Martha, who came in for pie twice a week. They remembered the couple, remembered my note, but their memories were hazy on details. None had seen the exact words, none had held the $100 bill. "Sorry, dear," Martha said, patting my hand. "I believe you, of course. But I'm just one old lady. People won't listen to me." Her words stung more than I admitted. I drafted emails late into the night. Subject lines like, "The truth about the $100 story, and you've been interviewing the wrong woman." I attached scans of the receipt, the bank statement, even a photo of Ethan's poster. I poured my heart into the words, pleading for them to see the lie. Days passed. Most never replied. A few sent polite rejections. One message burned itself into my mind. "Dear Sarah, thank you for reaching out. Unfortunately, the public already associates this story with Lydia Moore. At this point, revisiting the details may only cause confusion. We wish you the best." Confusion. As if truth was an inconvenience. I tried social media. I posted the receipt, my story, my face. Some friends shared it. A handful of strangers believed me, but others accused me of being jealous, of trying to steal Lydia's moment. One comment cut deep. "If you really cared about kindness, you wouldn't care about credit." I closed my laptop, hands trembling with fury. They didn't understand. This wasn't about credit, it was about being erased. Weeks blurred. Between shifts at the diner and caring for Ethan, I fought to keep momentum. But the world kept celebrating Lydia. She was invited to meet the governor. Her book hit bestseller lists. She announced a partnership with a clothing brand, her face plastered on billboards. Everywhere I looked, Her lie grew taller, stronger, while my truth shrank in the shadows. One night, exhaustion broke me. I sat at the kitchen table with the receipt in my hand, tears streaking my face. What if it doesn't matter? I whispered. What if they never believe me? Ethan padded into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. Mom. I wiped at my cheeks quickly. Go back to bed, honey. He walked over, stubborn as always. Don't cry. You said truth matters. If you stop, then she wins. His voice was small but steady. I looked into his eyes and saw more courage than I'd felt in weeks. And something inside me steadied again. The next day, I tried a different approach. Instead of chasing big networks, I went local. Small-town papers, community blogs, even church newsletters. Finally, a bite. A young journalist named Anna Reyes emailed me back. Sarah, I believe stories like this deserve the truth. Could we meet? We arranged to sit down at the diner after my shift. Anna was in her 20s, with a notebook that looked too big for her small hands. But her eyes were sharp, curious. Show me what you've got, she said. I laid everything out. The receipt, the bank statement, Ethan's poster, even Joe, who shuffled out of the kitchen to confirm my story. Anna listened carefully, scribbling notes. Why now, she asked. Why not just let it go? I took a deep breath. Because my son thinks liars win. Because truth should matter more than who looks good on TV. And because if I don't fight for my story, what example do I set for him? Her pen froze mid-sentence. She nodded slowly. That's powerful. When she left, hope flickered inside me like a candle in the wind. But days passed. The article never appeared. My emails went unanswered. When I finally reached her, her voice was apologetic but firm. My editor killed the piece. Said Lydia's too beloved, too profitable. They don't want to look like they got it wrong. I hung up before she could finish. That night, despair returned heavier than before. Every step forward had collapsed into a wall. I sat in the dark, clutching the receipt, wondering if I was a fool to keep fighting. Then Ethan climbed into my lap, pressing his head against my chest. Don't stop, Mom, he whispered. Please, don't stop. I held him tight, his small heartbeat steady against mine. And I knew, no matter how many setbacks came, I couldn't give up. The world had taken my story. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. It was a Tuesday morning when Joe stormed into the diner, grease still smeared on his apron. He slapped a folded newspaper onto the counter where I was pouring coffee. Look at this, he barked. I frowned, smoothing out the paper. Lydia's face smiled up at me again, but this time the headline was different. Local hero to receive National Humanitarian Award. The ceremony would be held in the city, televised, attended by senators, CEOs, reporters from every outlet. Lydia Moore, basking in glory once again, her lie written into history. My stomach dropped. That award meant permanence. Once she accepted it, the story would be sealed forever, etched into the public record. Joe's eyes were fierce. If you're gonna stop her, Sarah, that's your chance. After that, it's over. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. My mind kept circling back to one thought. What could I do that no one could deny? I had no stage, no cameras, no voice big enough to match hers. But I had truth. And one thing more powerful than a headline. Evidence in front of a crowd that couldn't ignore it. So I made a plan. The day of the ceremony, I put on the only decent dress I owned. A navy one I used to wear to church. Ethan begged to come, but I shook my head. This is something I need to do alone. He hugged me tightly. Make them listen, Mom. I carried my purse like armor. Inside, the receipt, the bank statement, and Ethan's poster, folded but still colorful. I took the train to the city, heart pounding the whole way. The auditorium was packed with polished people in tailored suits, cameras flashing at every turn. Security guards scanned badges at the entrance. I didn't have one, but desperation sharpens courage. I waited until a small group walked in together and slipped behind them, keeping my head low. My hands shook as I found a seat near the back. The stage glittered with lights. Lydia walked out in a shimmering gown, hair styled like she was royalty. The applause was thunderous. She smiled, that same polished smile, and began her speech. I've always believed kindness is the simplest yet most powerful gift, she said. Years ago, I saw a struggling family in a diner, and I gave them what little I had. That small act changed lives. It reminds us all. I couldn't breathe. She was telling my story, my sacrifice, my son, like it was hers. And the audience was eating it up. I stood. My knees wobbled, but my voice rang louder than I expected. That's a lie. The auditorium went silent. Heads turned. Lydia froze mid-sentence, blinking into the lights. I clutched the microphone stand at the aisle. That story wasn't yours. It was mine. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lydia's smile faltered. Excuse me? Security. But I pulled the plastic sleeve from my purse and held it high. This is the carbon copy of the receipt. August 12th, diner on Main Street. Table 6. A $112 bill, paid with a $100 tip. Signed by me, Sarah Miller. Cameras flashed. Reporters surged forward. I kept going, my voice trembling but fierce. I was the waitress. My son drew a poster for me, and I slipped it inside the envelope with the money. That's how she knew the story, because she was the customer I served. She took my kindness and sold it as her own. The room erupted. Shouts, questions, murmurs of disbelief. I unfolded Ethan's poster, holding it up. The paper was worn, the crayon colors faded, but the words still blazed. Thank you for being kind to my mom. Gasps turned to whispers, then outrage. Lydia's face drained of color. That's not true. She's making this up. But Joe's voice rang out from the back of the room. He had followed me. It's true. I was the cook that day. I saw Sarah write that note. I saw her slip that poster in. She's been telling the truth all along. Reporters spun toward him, notebooks scribbling, cameras zooming. I locked eyes with Lydia. For the first time, I saw fear there. Her mask cracked. This isn't about fame, I said, voice breaking. This is about my son watching the world reward a liar while his mother's truth was buried. I won't let him grow up believing lies when. The audience exploded, some shouting questions, others booing Lydia. Security moved uncertainly, unsure who to escort out. But it was already over. Because truth, once spoken aloud, cannot be swallowed back. That night, my story was everywhere. Not because I begged reporters, but because they had seen it themselves. The receipt, the poster, the confrontation. Headlines shifted. Waitress confronts author. $100 kindness story stolen. Talk shows replayed the clip, analyzing every word. Public opinion turned fast, brutal. And Lydia? Her book tour collapsed within days. Sponsors cut ties. By the end of the month, her name was poison in the media. But for me, it wasn't about her downfall. It was about walking into Ethan's room that night, showing him the headlines, and hearing him whisper, "You did it, Mom. You made them listen." I kissed his forehead, tears in my eyes. No, honey, we did. Because the truth had always been ours. The days that followed the climactic truth were strange and disorienting. Reporters still called, but now their questions were gentle, reverent. How did it feel to reclaim your story? What will you do with this moment? I answered politely, but my mind kept wandering to quieter things. The smell of frying bacon at the diner. The soft hum of Ethan's desk lamp as he did his homework. The cold linoleum beneath my bare feet. Life had shifted, yes, but the core of it, the rhythm of ordinary days, remained. The diner became a different place, too. Regular customers stared with awe. Some asked for autographs, others just came to shake my hand. But the best part was the couple from that day, now regular visitors who smiled warmly and sat down for a cup of coffee. They didn't need recognition. They didn't want it. They just wanted to share a quiet nod of understanding. I felt my chest tighten. The $100 note had done more than feed two people. It had connected lives, built trust, and strangely, had given me a purpose I didn't even know I was missing. The media frenzy died down after a month, leaving behind only the occasional feature story. A local newspaper ran a small, tasteful piece about how the waitress from Main Street had been right all along. A reporter I had met weeks ago, Anna Reyes, sent me a link. Truth prevails. Glad you never gave up. I smiled, thinking of how fragile courage feels when it's first born. and how strong it becomes when you feed it every day. And then there were the gifts. Not the flashy electronics or money. Those felt like side effects. The real gift was recognition from people who mattered. Ethan's proud face, Joe's quiet nod, the couple's gentle thanks. That was worth more than anything else. I finally bought the washing machine I had been saving for a year. But as I loaded the first batch of laundry, I realized it wasn't the machine that mattered. It was the lesson behind the sacrifice. That sometimes giving what little you have can ripple farther than you imagine. I kept the receipt in a drawer. Not for proof anymore, but as a reminder. Courage, honesty, and kindness are not transactional. They are eternal. Ethan watched me from the doorway. "Mom, can I help fold?" I smiled, handing him a towel. "Of course, baby." He matched each fold carefully, just as he had drawn his poster carefully weeks before. And I realized that victory wasn't loud or televised. Victory was this: quiet moments, shared love, and the certainty that truth had finally taken its rightful place. I leaned against the counter, the hum of the washing machine in the background, and breathed in the warmth of a home restored. The city outside continued its constant rush. Headlines came and went. People still searched for heroes, and many didn't know my name. But that no longer mattered. Because I had learned something that no award or television segment could ever teach. Some victories are invisible to the world. Some victories are measured not in fame, but in the peace that fills your chest when you know you did right, even when the world doubted you. And as I watched Ethan place the last folded shirt into the dryer, I knew we had both won. The $100 gift had changed more than a single meal. It had changed the rhythm of our lives, teaching us that courage, truth, and kindness could withstand even the heaviest storms. And this time, our story would never be stolen again. Years from that day, I still keep Ethan's poster tucked in a frame above the kitchen counter. The crayon colors have faded, the paper slightly wrinkled, but every time I look at it, I remember the moment that began it all. The day a small act of kindness became the center of a storm I never asked for. Yet one that taught me more than any calm day ever could. I've learned that courage is quiet. It doesn't always roar on television screens or appear in social media feeds. Sometimes courage is standing in a crowded auditorium, hands shaking, voice trembling, and saying, "This is my truth." Sometimes it's choosing to give what little you have, even when no one will ever notice. The $100 bill that sparked this journey didn't just feed a couple at a diner. It fed a lesson that grew into resilience, honesty, and unwavering resolve. Lydia's lie may have stolen a moment of recognition, but it could never steal the experience, the intention, or the bond one share with my son. And in that bond, I found victory greater than any award or headline could provide. I realize now that life will try to rewrite our stories, erase our names, or reward the undeserving. But the truth, when held firmly, cannot be buried. It waits, patient, silent, inevitable, until the moment we decide to let it breathe. Standing in the kitchen with the hum of the washing machine in the background, watching Ethan carefully fold clothes beside me, I finally understand what it means to reclaim one's life. Not through fame, applause, or material reward, but through integrity, love, and quiet perseverance. The poster may be small, the crayon lines imperfect, and the memory a little faded, but it is mine. And that is more than enough. Because in the end, it isn't the world's applause that defines us. It's the courage to act rightly when no one is watching, and the strength to tell the truth when everyone else is listening to a lie. And that truth, however long it takes, will always find its way home.